So the astrology of the week of 4 October 2021 through 10 October 2021 provides a big energetic shift in the astrology. We get Mars, Mercury, and the Sun joining together and getting purified in the heart of the Sun, those two planets, Mars and Mercury. And then we get the ruler of all of those planets, Venus, leaving exile in Scorpio and moving into Sagittarius, which provides a big collective lift to the energy. This is kind of a turning point week. We also have a new moon in Libra to seed some newness into our lives. I think after this week, we get a real uplift and a real shift, palpable shift in the energy. So let's jump into the charts. Let's jump into the week of astrology. My name is S.J. Anderson. Welcome to my channel. I do weekly astrology forecast here on this channel, occasionally with some other videos, about astrology. But welcome this week to this week's weekly astrology. What I'll do in the video is first, we're going to examine the sign changes, stations, and ingresses of the major planets, not moon, and so the 6 traditional planets that are not the moon. The second thing is that we'll look at the moon itself, and we'll see what signs the moon is moving through to try to understand the nature of the lunar cycle or the lunation cycle of this particular week. Third, I will, in chronological order, go through charts I'm interested in. We'll examine those more in depth. And then lastly, I will pull tarot and cartomancy cards to get another set of symbols to overlay with the astrology. Always a potent thing to do. Love the cartomancy and tarot. Very, very powerful tools. So that's what I'm going to do. Thank you for being here. Welcome here. In terms of an introduction or a big overview before I dive into anything, I'm thinking just how, as I prepared this talk, how powerful this week is. Because as you all know, I've been describing Jupiter and Saturn's co-presence in Aquarius as such a powerful thing in 2021 in particular. They entered Aquarius together in December 2020. They made their conjunction on the winter solstice 2020, but then they spent most of 2021, save for 3 months when Jupiter came into Pisces briefly and then came back into Aquarius. Jupiter and Saturn have spent most of 2021 together in Aquarius. It's the massive story of 2021, the Aquarian moment we're in, the empowered Aquarius. Saturn rules Aquarius. Jupiter is the other great planet, the 2 slowest moving traditional planets joining to kind of enforce and inject this heavy Aquarian into the reality. And you don't need me to tell you about what's happened in 2021 in terms of new rules, new structures of society, new technologies, medical technologies, all of this newness that has been kind of descended and enforced on the collective. That's what the, I think, mundane story has largely been about. But this fall is the climax of this whole narrative of 2021 and this heavy-duty Aquarius activation, because Jupiter and Saturn, they've now stopped. As I make this video, they're stationing, moving very, very slow. So they're still technically retrograde, but they're in the degree of their stations, their direct stations, which will come in about a week and a half, 2 weeks. So they're right here, very slow, almost stopped in the sky. And when that happens, the energy gets sucked up and a real powerful sort of punctuation or intensity around Jupiter and Saturn, both in Aquarius. That's happening now. And that's what all of October is about. This double station of Jupiter and Saturn happens a week apart. I think it's the 11th and the 18th here in Central Europe. Saturn on the 11th, Jupiter on the 18th. So this is the context of this week. And it's the context of the current astrological moment, because everything happening this week is very much, again, about, or much of this week is about Libra, the air sign, the cardinal air sign, which makes that lovely trine, that air trine to Aquarius. And so by virtue of having those 3 planets in Libra making the triple conjunction this week, by having a new moon in Libra this week, we're sending a kind of synergized flow between the Aquarian element that I was just speaking about, this larger context of the moment. And so the more I was looking at this week, the more I was thinking, wow, this is really a kickoff. The other thing about this week is that we inject this real big shift of energy that I was speaking about before. I think by the time I'm making this video next Sunday, and even 2 Sundays from now, The whole world's going to be in a much, much different place. Your life may be in a much different place because this is going to affect your nativity. And it's an optimistic thing because we're in a Mercury retrograde not right now. We're in a period where the Sun and Mars are debilitated in exile and fall, respectively. Exile and fall, respectively. Fall and exile, respectively. The Sun is in fall because the Sun is exalted in Aries. Mars rules Aries, so Mars is exiled in Libra. But these difficult kind of power energy planets have been struggling. This week there's this purification and a shift. Venus enters the fire sign, Sagittarius, so there's a real rejuvenation. That's my introduction. I'm kind of talking now about the configuration. So let me just shift there and shift here now into the first phase of the talk. What are the planets doing this week? What are the configurations? And I'll start just where I left off there. We get here this triple conjunction on the 9th of October, which is Saturday. You will have here, like in the evening on Saturday, Mercury conjoins the Sun. The day before on Friday, early in the morning, Mars conjoins the Sun. That Friday-Saturday pocket where they will be all in the same degree, in that 17th degree of Libra, Mercury, Mars, and the Sun together, is a very purifying moment for the difficult Mercury retrograde and the Sun and Mars being in its exile. Anytime planets get into the fire of the Sun, it's just a purification. And this is sometimes independent. I mean, it's never independent of where it's happening in the zodiac, but it is based on phase, based on the phase of a planet with the Sun. There's always this conjunction that happens. And so there's some of this moment can be independent of the zodiacal position. Like a retrograde station, that's independent of a zodiacal position. Some of the significations of a retrograde station we can examine independent of everything else that's happening. These so-called kazimis, I like to call them in the heart of the suns or conjunction moments. These are purifications. Happens here Friday, Saturday. Big change, I think, and maybe a clarification of the challenge you've been going through, of the struggles we've been having. We get a boost here and maybe a moment to see things anew, even to maybe take action if we're so inclined. That happens Friday, Saturday. And then on Saturday as well, not on Saturday. So let's scroll back earlier in the week. So it's a jam-packed week, first of all, a lot happening. Venus comes into Sagittarius that's Thursday, on October 7th at about noon. That's a huge shift independent of everything else that's happening. Just to have Venus out of Scorpio, where it's more about the pain and the latent difficulty and emotional challenge in relationships. Now Venus gets to expand a little bit, be a little bit more happy and fleet-footed and expansive. It's a big shift, but Venus is ruling everything in the sky in Libra, so it's impacting all of the things I just spoke about with this triple conjunction that's happening in Libra. So right on Monday at 2 a.m. we kick off with the Mercury-Jupiter trine. That's so early. I'm not even going to talk much about this. There's so much happening. That's not an aspect I want to go into very much. It is auspicious though for maybe thinking, thought, mentality. That may set some of the tone of the week. This is the second pass of the Mercury-Jupiter trine story. I think I'll talk more about it with the last one. I'll have more time to do that when Mercury is stationing and moving now forward in its retrograde motion, and it'll come back and hit Jupiter later in, I think, early November, maybe even a late October. So I'm going to save all of that deep symbolic exploration for that later, that third and last trine, pass of the trine. But so just to come back here, Venus into Sagittarius on Thursday, huge upgrade. The fiery, expansive Venus ruled by its benefic Jupiter. We get that on Thursday. On Friday, we get Mars purified with the Sun. We can move into action maybe better than we've been able to for the last few weeks, with both Mars and the Sun debilitated. Then we get Mercury's purification. This isn't always with a Mercury retrograde. These Mercury purifications are turning points in that Mercury retrograde story. Maybe it's a little easier now for what's going on with your Mercury retrograde. And then we get Venus conjoining the South Node, which I'll talk more about later, but basically this previews eclipse season. As soon as Venus comes into Sagittarius, it hits the South Node also on Saturday, triggering up that Sagittarius eclipse vibe. We have one more eclipse in the Sagittarius-Gemini axis. It's on December 3rd or 4th. And so that story, whatever that's been about for you in the Sagittarius sector of your chart, Venus coming here, I think, sweetens and starts preparing us for this final eclipse there. And then, so on the 6th, which is Wednesday, is when we get that new moon in Libra at 1 p.m. So you can see there's just a lot happening. And again, there's so much symbolically here of seeding new things, of changing important planets, improving their dignity, namely Venus, which rules so many other planets. There's a sense of starting again here, and then that purification of Mars and Mercury with the Sun. We're getting kind of an injection of newness, new beginnings, and kind of a new starting place. If you take away nothing else from the video, take away that. Powerful new beginnings this week, and I think you're going to feel it palpably. So let's move now. The next thing I want to look at is the moon's sign changes. This is another powerful week where we get the moon going from a waning dark moon into this waxing growing moon. I always love waxing moons and young moons, the sense of optimism and conjecture about what may happen in the future. They're kind of hopeful, I find, these younger moons. In particular, this week, I think we get an increase in our collective hope and maybe our personal hope, particularly on Thursday when Venus comes into Sagittarius. Like I said, Venus and Jupiter are the two planets that signify hope, optimism, and freedom. Venus will be ruled by Jupiter, making a supportive sextile to Jupiter in Aquarius. So this is kind of raising up of hope this week, combined with the waxing young moon phase that's also hopeful. And then this moment here on the weekend, on Saturday, about 5 p.m. where I am in Central Europe, the moon comes also into Sagittarius and is ruled by Jupiter, co-present with Venus. So we get a kind of capstone or a finishing moment here on the weekend of a lot of hopeful optimism. I think this weekend will be exciting. It is Mercury retrograde, so obviously I'm not doing elections or anything like that during this time, but just enjoy it. Go out with friends and do things. Maybe you'll find ways to spend this increased hope that you've got this weekend, Saturday evening. I think you'll have a nice time maybe. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. That's my main read here of this moon. Obviously the new moon is quite important. Libra is co-present with, moon will be co-present with Mars in Libra, so the moon gets mixed up, and this whole new moon is mixed up in this larger Libra Aquarius trine story and the triple conjunction of Mars, Mercury, and the Sun in Libra. This new moon is a way to very much blend and stamp that energy into the next 2-week period, because every syzygy energetically lingers for about 2 weeks at a minimum. And then you get a fallen moon, fallen in Scorpio. This could be midweek. Maybe there's some more of that intensity. Maybe there's things triggered back up here from the first phase of Mercury retrograde, because Venus in Scorpio was ruling that first phase of Mercury retrograde, all in Libra. A lot of intense stuff happened. I don't know about you guys, but my Twitter feed was just really rocked with like a lot of revelations and intensity and deep kind of painful stuff. And we maybe some of that will linger or reemerge a little bit here with this fallen moon in Scorpio starting on Thursday 4 p.m. Central Europe, ending on Saturday 5 p.m. Central Europe. But I'm most optimistic about this kind of weekend young moon, and you'll see that will be my transit of the week. So let us move. Let's move. Let's move to the next phase, the chronological list of transits. I'm going to move fast. There's a lot here. First one I want to look at, Tuesday, 5th of October, 5 in the morning here in Central Europe where I am. I want to just bring everybody's attention to this dying moon, this very old moon here, just about to go under the sun's beams. It gets bona fide by Jupiter and Venus here for a moment in Virgo, in late Virgo. This is actually one of my favorite, the last lunar mansion in Virgo, the 14th lunar mansion, Al-Simak. It's actually one of my favorite lunar mansions because of its connection to romantic love. Anybody that's looking for love, energy, often we think Venus. Well, Venus rules maybe Taurus or Libra. But there's this Virgo side to love. There's a very Virgoan love energy. You might see it sometimes when people talk about Venus and Virgo and how good that can be, even though Venus is fallen in Virgo. There's this kind of sweet Venusian side to Virgo. Venus rules Virgo by day triplicity. Venus has a lot of dignity in the Egyptian term there in the early to mid degrees of Virgo. Venus is of that night sect. Virgo is a sign of the night sect. So I think this is where maybe the love and romance comes in here. And I just want to key you in. This is early in the week. There's still a lot of intensity. Venus is still in Scorpio at the moment that this moon is bona fide. You might find some sweeter romantic pockets here as a way to kind of rest into this rebirthing that happens later in the week. Maybe just a sweet little kiss, or you know, a foot rub, or just even with friends, a note of kindness, or with your parents or family. You know, this kind of I want to say dalliance, but you know, this kind of just sweet, playful energy we can bring friends, lovers, and family, and people we love. I think there's a pocket here. This is again Tuesday, early in the morning, in the evening in North America, more in the day on Tuesday down under or in Asia. So I'm liking this Virgo moon. I think it's a sweet moment. Warnock talks about, from lunarium.co.uk, my favorite website, they quote Warnock as this mansion being about transitory nature of great passion. It is in that mutable sign of Virgo. So maybe just some fleeting enjoyment here that you can have with people you love. Love this. I just wanted to share it. Let's move on. The next transit, 6th of October, Wednesday, 1 in the afternoon. This is now the Libra new moon. Check out the chart. I mean, I have here to seal the heavy Libra activation, this rare and heavy Libra activation. A new moon comes to put a seal on it. The seal of the luminaries, the syzygy activation that happens. This is going to be doubly ruled. So ruled by term and domicile, the two major forms of rulership. I stand by that. I always look at both, or often look at both. It's so hard to break out of the heavy focus in our astrology in the 20th and 21st century that's so reliant on domicile rulership and even modern rulership. And so the more I study and the more I get involved, Egyptian terms are just as powerful and as sort of equal rulers. By the way, my essay's coming along. I've got some of the first, I'm into the writing now, out of the research. Just taking a little longer than I thought. Writing's hard, committing the time to do it is hard. It will be done, and I will launch it. I'll have a video with it too that's gonna break down the essay, all about these Egyptian terms, but this is just a little hint and a preview. So I look at the two rulers. Mercury rules by Egyptian term. It's retrograde in Libra, co-present with the new moon. And then Venus in Scorpio rules by domicile. So to me, this feels like those energies from last week, the retrograde Mercury ruled by the Venus in Scorpio, the intense purgation or the coming up for healing of painful emotions or painful connections, difficult relationships, maybe difficult questions about our intimacy and our own relationship to emotional intimacy with other people, reviewing that with the Mercury retrograde energy, triggering the Venus in Scorpio, maybe feeling uncomfortable or dissonant because those planets cannot make an aspect. This all gets sealed here with the new moon. And I kind of like it because the symbolism of a new moon is the seeding of a new beginning. You might find that the issues you've been struggling with here have a little bit of juice and a little bit of ability to see things anew or to move forward with the new awareness or knowledge you've been given with these recent transits. Sometimes that's what transits are good for. Difficulty in life is good for. It's awareness. Okay, now I see my problems. I see my patterns and problems. That alone can revolutionize a life and revolutionize our approach to life and change everything going forward. So I think this new moon can maybe bring some of that. I will also mention it's trine to Jupiter and Saturn. Just like I said earlier, Jupiter and Saturn are nearing their direct station in the degrees where they will both station direct later in October. So this is the whole story of the last year culminating with this new moon in some ways, some newness getting injected into that collective cycle of everything we've been dealing with. I mentioned that in the introduction. The last thing I want to say about this new moon is that everything is in air. We've got 6 of the 7 traditional planets in air signs. This can be thought, intellect, ideas. I'm wondering technologies. Maybe part of your Aquarius story in 2021 has been engaging with technology anew. I know much of my life's online now, so much more than it's ever been, actually. I mean, just saying that now in this video, I've known this to be a truth, but it's just like hitting me right now. It's so profound. So much of my life is on the internet and digitized. It's kind of scary. I was happy yesterday that I got out with some friends here. We were just sitting in the park and everybody was chilling and talking. Felt very old world. It's so strange to even say that, like hanging out in the park with a group is old world. That's an anachronism now. But so just let me come back to this. The point here is thinking about the technological advancements in your own life. This new moon with these stations of Jupiter and Saturn in October may give you a opportunity to kind of move forward into that in the ways that it's been useful to you and you've been able to kind of grow with those technologies. This is something I see a big opportunity for. So, and that's all air sign. But it could also be thoughts, ideas, questions, writing. All of those things are in play here to get this injection of a powerful air moment. You also might find that there's overweight with the mental states. And to counterbalance this heavy air energy, you want to move into earth signs or other strategies of grounding. If you're feeling out of control with your thinking, that can be what happens when you have an overweight of an element in the chart. We have to kind of counterbalance by deploying other elements. Take a long bath. I was in that park yesterday I was telling you about. I picked up that grass and just smelled it, picked it up off the ground. Getting direct activation and contact with the elements that aren't in the chart as a way to counterbalance those activations. So some kids are talking out here, nothing I can do about that. You know, they'll just be kind of the background soundtrack to the video. So, okay, the next thing I want to look at is this same chart of the new moon. We look at the activations of the fixed star. So the fixed star activations here with the new moon, I'm going to talk over these kids. Bless you, kids, bless you. Algorab is the fixed star I want to focus on. It's in this constellation Corvus, and this is basically a crow. And so you have Algorab is in the right wing, the Gina, I think is how you say that, is in the left wing. Those are the two main stars in the Corvus constellation. This syzygy activates Algorab, and this is a strange energy. I think it fits quite well with the energy of the new moon, particularly the triple conjunction we have this week: Mars, Mercury, and the Sun in Libra. Astrologers like Ptolemy say this is Mars and Saturn. They give Robeson here is kind of down, or not down, but pretty hyperbolic, like Robeson always is when he writes about the fixed stars. He's quite hyperbolic here in terms of the kind of downsides of this star. I want to focus more on the scavenging here, and not necessarily as much lying, but more about conniving and trickery as a necessary feature sometimes to get things we need or want. That's the mercurial side, right? And you can think about, so I have your scavenging vibe, the opera, The Thieving Magpie, if you've listened to this, the Rossini opera. It's classic music. You've heard it. It's in many movies. I think Clockwork Orange is I believe it's there in A Clockwork Orange, but it's yes it is. But you listen to that music and it's this kind of trickster music. It's that's my bad rendition. But if you listen to that whole overture, it really changes and it's tricky, and you can hear in the music, like you can think about a crow sneaking up to grab something. This is the kind of energy we may need to embody, especially during a time when Mercury is retrograde, but in this, I think more potently here, in that triple conjunction, Mercury, Mars, the Sun, they're in the same degree together. And so they're mutually purified together. It's like they're in a team joining this purification cauldron, and they mix here. And Mars-Mercury energy, I find it very much to be like a magpie or a crow, because the Mars side is the attacking or the getting the food, sneaking, and then the Mercury side is the sneaking. So you sneak and you plan and then you get that food. You might think about with Mercury retrograde how you can do more of the sneakiness now, and the kind of the planning side of your mercurial powers. That said, when the Sun and Mars join, I've seen this now for a few cycles, it implies an action moment. And so maybe this is what it's telling us, is there may be some required action here, even though we're in a Mercury retrograde. And you can think about your sneaky kind of deliberate sniping energetics with this fixed star conjunction. So that's what I'm gonna describe here. Listen to that music if you haven't in a while. Just type it in, The Thieving Magpie Overture. It's beautiful, beautiful music. I listened to it as I was writing this, just to get into the vibe of it. All right, let's move. Next chart, 7 October 2021, Thursday, 1:21 in Central Europe. This is that big change with Venus. I've already spoken some about it. It comes into Sagittarius. It's a big relief. I think this is going to be a big relief. I mean, look, life is great to go into the inner depths and the painful inner depths. We all have to do it if we want to maintain a sense of self-actualization and just humanity and maturity. You've got to see the inner depths of what we carry, in my view. They talk about incorporating the shadow or whatever. It's the same idea. Without doing that, if we run from it, we're going to act it out unconsciously. So that's the power of what we've been going through with Venus and Scorpio. But it's good. We can't do that every day, right? Life's not a trail of tears. If we stay too much into that, then we don't get to go out to these other cycles and phases. Again, this is one of the best things about astrology, the cycles of life. The planets show us how these cycles are, they map the cycles. But it teaches us the cyclical side. Sometimes it's good to be, emotionally wrought as a healing strategy, and then there's times to let that go and go out into the world. Sagittarius, the fire sign, it's a day sex sign ruled by the expansive Jupiter. This is implying here symbolically going out now with our relationships and with our pleasure, seeking it out in the outer world here in Sagittarius. So it might be time to thank yourself, love your inner child, and I was talking about that in some recent videos, and say, okay, now we're going to go out and meet new people or engage anew. And I think it will provide a lift, of jovial lift for the collective energy, because look at this. Venus rules that Libra pile up, and now Venus can make the aspect. Now it's making the sextile by sign to all of the planets that depend on Venus in Libra. Venus now, with its ruler, makes a sextile to Jupiter, the planet ruling it. And so in the sky, once Venus ingresses, you can see it's sextile city. I coined that just right now. It's a sextile city here. All traditional planets will be in a sextile with each other or a trine. So maybe we have a trine there too, but it's two sextiles. It's three signs that make a sextile relationship where all of the planets are in those three signs. And that's auspicious. Sextiles allow for the flow, the maneuvering. Things aren't as difficult. We can just get into things. I love this setup for October because we're going to burst forth with Jupiter and Saturn stationing direct. We have a lot of cool astrology and supportive astrology now. It's not as difficult by any means as what we just went through. So let's see here. Things get less painful and raw, and it's more fun energy. I think I talked about that. The South Node, I mentioned that earlier. I'm not going to say much more than just this. Venus comes right in to conjoin the South Node here on Saturday, and this brings that sort of fadedness here. And this is an ongoing story we've had with Sagittarius eclipses, but just look for those to be pinged when Venus hits the South Node. Again, setting us up for that final 3-4 December solar eclipse in Sagittarius, our final moment of this eclipse cycle. I think it'll be very settling, maybe a time where we'll be able to integrate or finally put the pieces together in a kind of culmination or conclusive eclipse. Venus is hitting that now. You might look for those stories to begin emerging. And then finally here, Jupiter makes that sextile the whole transit. Venus has support of Jupiter. I know I already mentioned that, but the main thing here, Venus is ruling 3 planets, 4 planets if you count the moon. Venus gets a big upgrade, so all of those planets get an upgrade by rulership. So our whole collective sense is going to start being buoyed here with hope. I've already talked so much about that. All right, let's move. Next chart, 9 October, Saturday. This is 3 in the afternoon in Central Europe. This is that triple conjunction. Now, I've already talked about that Friday is when, let's see, Mercury and, the Sun. Let's just go back and walk through the exact dates while we're here, the exact moments of these conjunctions. So 8 October, that's Friday. Mars and the Sun conjoin at 6 a.m. in Central Europe. Saturday, 9 October, 6:18 in the afternoon or evening, Mercury and the Sun make their conjunction. And so let me just come back to where are we? Let me just see, back to the chart here, not there. Excuse me, guys and gals and folks out there. So this is the chart I'm looking at, is this triple conjunction. I just picked one chart here on Saturday. Instead of breaking these down each into a separate chart, I tried to find one chart that was a pretty decent chart that showed them all together in the same degree. This chart is for 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon on Saturday. So after the Sun has already caught up to Mars and purified Mars on Friday, but they're still in the same degree here, still very close together, and now Mercury has joined that degree. So I feel like a chart like this is really emblematic of this whole moment, which I'm kind of throwing together, the Friday, Saturday joining of these 3 planets. So what I have here, Mars, power to act decisively gets purified. It's been exiled in Libra. Now there's a moment of movement with action. Because it's Libra, this may be relational. This may be groups of people. You may be forced to now act here in a group setting or with other people. A final decision where you tell a group how you really feel, or you exit a group, right? Mars can be breaking off or breaking away. When you have the Mars purification moment, it can imply action or separation or breaking off. With Mercury, how we understand, process, those things, our processing, our language, our understanding, our writing, all of that gets juiced, I have here. Same thing as purified. It gets rendered powerful for this moment here. And they're all blending together. So, again, how we act with our understanding in mind. Maybe this is more of a letter, or writing a group, or sending out that email, or social media. You make that post where you have a big change of your offerings on social media, that something like that can be done here now. Mercury is retrograde. I don't recommend doing big elected things for a Mercury retrograde. You might have to, though. Like sometimes people, if there's drama, they have to write that letter, right? They have to speak to an issue, or you don't have to ever do anything, but I guess they feel like they have to. So anyhow, these are the kind of themes with this moment. I just want to point out here, Jupiter and Mars are in an exchange via Egyptian term. Jupiter is ruled by Mars in Aquarius, this Egyptian term of Mars. And Mars is in the Egyptian terms here over the next few days, around this time, all of these terms in middle to late Libra. So they're exchanging here. It underscores even further the Libra-Aquarius exchange, boundaries and seriousness in relationships. All of that is the meta context for this triple conjunction, the Saturn and Venus joining together. We connect when we have structure, we connect when we can trust someone, we connect when we have clear boundaries of needs, clear expression of needs. That is like the context, and then we have the action and the Mercury and the Sun getting purified within that context. So keep those, that might be how these purifications want to manifest for you. All right, the other thing I want to just remember here is that this whole moment feels like a burst of change kicking off the rest of 2021. These synodic cycles with the Sun are the moments when planets get reborn. So Mercury will now be reborn in the underworld, and then it will become a morning star later in October. This is the rebirth moment for Jupiter's synodic cycle. For Mars's synodic cycle. So the Sun has caught up to a slow Mars, and now Mars will be, just moving, and the Sun moves faster than Mars. And then once they get near that opposition, Mars will go retrograde in Gemini in 2022. So we're now here, an air sign Libra with Mars's seeding and kicking off its new synodic cycle with the Sun. That will culminate in a Gemini retrograde. And I think that's for Mars in 2022, which it's interesting because Mercury, the Sun, and Mars are all blended here. And that next retrograde, when Mars is opposite the Sun, will be in the Mercury-ruled Gemini. So I think this is actually seeding and providing much of what our Mars retrograde 2022 story will become about. So maybe take notes in your journal as that emerges. I'm not sure what month it is. I don't have that up yet. I believe it's later in the year. It's summer. I think it's around summertime. So it would be an opposition, actually. So no, that's in November. That's later in the year, yeah. Probably October, November, December, you're going to have the Mars retrograde. So, all right, let's move here. That's what I have to say about that triple conjunction. Very rare, very potent, very powerful. Next chart I want to look at, 10 October, Sunday, 11:30 in the morning here in Central Europe. This is the transit of the week. This is the chart I picked. I was thinking about that Virgo moon, that bona fide Virgo moon, but it's ruled by Mercury retrograde. Just not my favorite thing to capture if I'm going to pick a transit of the week. Whereas this chart, I spoke all about it earlier. It's a waxing moon. It's a growing moon. There's a heavy dose of hope. Venus will have ingressed into Sagittarius. So we have Venus is out of fall, or out of exile. The moon and Venus are now traveling together. They're making a sextile to ruler Jupiter. Jupiter is slowing down and about to station direct. This just feels like a much more optimistic and hopeful transit of the week chart. And so I'm just going to go for this. I mean, I've kind of already done this work. I've already spoken about it. But this weekend you might find you're out there in the world with friends and doing some more Sagittarian style exploration with people you love or care about. Maybe a good first date chart for like a Sunday. Taking someone you're interested in, or a friend date. out into, go to a park or go explore your city. This is a really cool chart for that energy. And it's this turning point of October, right? Because the waxing moon is forward looking. Venus in Sagittarius, forward looking. This is pinging the eclipse in December, the December 3-4 eclipse in Sagittarius. And Jupiter is about to station direct. That's forward looking. So this is very much a chart about getting excited about the end of 2021 and into even next year, into 2022. Because remember, when Jupiter stations direct, where is it heading? Back to Pisces. It will never be in Aquarius again. Like I was saying earlier, the Aquarius story of 2021 is very much in play here for a final climax. But remember, that's going to be gone. There's optimism in that, I think, for a lot of people, that we don't have to have such a heavy dose of Aquarius anymore, starting at the end of 2021 and never again until 2056, I believe. Or no, actually 2076. It's when Jupiter and Saturn come back to Aquarius again. It's about 59 years from now. So I actually think it is 2076, if I recall correctly. They'll be co-present again. It may be a little later than that, but in the late 2070s is the next time we get so much Aquarius, particularly with Jupiter and Saturn being present there. So this is an optimistic, expansive, forward-thinking energy. I think it'll come as a very fresh vibe and a welcome vibe. So that is the weekly astrology. Let's shift now to the weekly tarot and the weekly cartomancy. Love pulling cards, love touching base with this. There's a lot here, as you can see, a lot going on this week, and I love how hopeful this week's of astrology is, particularly by the end of the week. Let's get the first card. All right, first card is the Queen of Earth. It's the Earth Queen. So let me just get the card out here. The Earth Queen is boom. This in this deck is the Diamond Queen. It's the Queen of Diamonds, and you can see it here. That cool green. This like what do they call that? There's a word for that kind of green. Kelly green, maybe. That might be the wrong color, but so we're kicking off with this green, earthy Queen. This corresponds in the zodiacally to the fixed to Taurus. So it's pointing us here. I mean, I'm just thinking about this is how I would delineate this. Venus, ruler of Taurus, has been challenged for about 3.5 weeks, going on 3.5 weeks now. It will be about 3.5 weeks when all is said and done. So going on about 3 weeks as of the recording of this video. What haven't you got? What haven't you got during this period in terms of your Venusian desires? What have you had to put on hold? What have you been processing? It's good to think about what has been missing sometimes with a planet, when a planet is in a difficult state in the sky, because it will be strong again and you'll get to feel those things again. So it's good to just think about in a week when Venus gets empowered, Thursday, moving into Sagittarius, we get a chance to maybe return to some of the stronger Venus. And so considering just like with Taurus, again, earth signs, physical pleasures, pleasures around the body, the sun is exalted in Taurus, pleasures around others and relationships, but more of the physicality, good food, good comfort, good music and art. That's all very much a Taurus signification. What could you have if as we move into the rest of this year, what art do you want to look at? What music do you want to hear? Maybe you go to a concert. I've been seeing more of those around. Who do you want to love? Who do you want to be around? Who do you want to give your love to? I always love the idea of love as something we give by a choice. Who do you want to give that to in the rest of this year? So these are the kind of things I would contemplate, but and then how has it been if that's been challenged in the last 3 weeks? Looking at that, okay? So let's move. I'm going to pick the next card. Let's get the Tarot of Marseille God deck, the 26 card God deck. Let's get the second card. This is the, let's see here. I think it may be Lust, but I could be wrong. I think it may be the Lust or the Strength card. I haven't memorized the number system. I'm getting better at it, but yes, it is. It is the Lust Strength card. Again, this is Leo. This is this kind of fiery, passions of Leo, and how we can sort of contain those at its best. This is in the future position. What I think about this is all about the Sun, Mars joining in Libra. Libra is ruled by Venus. You have a female depicted traditionally here, and we're looking at, and Venus can be traditionally associated with female energy. You've got the triple conjunction here being seated this week. So that means that, remember, this is Leo. We're looking at Leo, and anytime we see the lust or strength card, that's ruled by the sun. Thinking about, again, our sun has been debilitated, it's been fallen, but when the sun and Mars meet here in Libra, I think they get to join this, the fiery planet of Mars is adding fire to the sun. The sun is a fiery planet. They both are blending here to kind of reignite their energies in a part of the zodiac where they're both really struggling and maybe not as fiery as they otherwise would be. So I think this is, again, thinking about maybe what actions are you able to sort of take, what passion can you transmute this week. And it's also, I think, speaking to Venus and Sagittarius, the fire sign. This is a fire energy of the flame inside of us and how we can deploy it and control it and use it for action. That's what this card really represents. We get a dose of that fire with Venus coming into Sagittarius. And so this reading can just simply be debilitated Venus into powerful Venus as a way that this week is going to unfold. Enjoy this week. That's the weekly tarot. This is the weekly astrology. This is S.J. Anderson. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to my channel. You can support me by liking and subscribing the video. You can always go to my website, sjanderson144.com, and schedule an astrology reading, a tarot reading, or you can support my Patreon. Helps keep the videos going. Have an awesome day. Talk soon.